Welcome back to another episode. Today I will be discussing something that we all do, and that is comparing ourselves to other people. I'll talk about why we compare, why it's necessary and not always a bad thing to compare, and how we can do it in a way that promotes inspiration and motivation rather than envy and resentment. But first, let's consider this for a second. Imagine you are a 1 in a million person, but you originate from New York City. If that's the case, then there's actually 10 of you. And most of us now live in large cities. And with the help of the internet connecting billions of us around the world, it's evident that our hierarchies of accomplishment and competencies are more complex and more vertical than ever. It seems as if no matter how good we are at something, there is someone out there who makes us look incompetent. Take myself, for example. My mission here is to motivate, educate, and encourage people to live stronger, holistically stronger. But there are holistic coaches out there that probably blow my work out of the damn water, at least for right now. Now, inside of all of us dwells a critical internal voice that knows all of this, and it's quite a noisy voice too. Now, some of our inner critics may be harsher than others, and some may even be deluded, but that's not the point of this video. This inner voice is ultimately responsible for all our comparisons, both good and bad, among other things. But worst of all, its critiques are necessary. You see, our shortcomings and failures are the price we pay for standards. Poorly designed buildings crumble during earthquakes. Poor cooks give their customers food poisoning. It is because of both the harsh and real consequences of mediocrity and poor efforts that standards are necessary. And it's also important to identify and differentiate between objective standards and our own subjective ones. For example, the standard grade to pass a certain course might be a B+, but you might have a personal standard of achieving higher or lower than that. But I digress. Back to comparisons. We as humans are not equal in ability nor outcome, and never will be. There will always be people around us that are better at something than we are, and our inner critic knows this well. The proper response to this revelation should not be, well, then everything is meaningless. Thinking that way can result in us feeling envious, bitter, resentful, and worst of all, hopeless. Talking ourselves into irrelevance is certainly not a profound critique of living and being. It's actually a cheap trick of the rational mind. Now, that's not to say we shouldn't compare ourselves to others in general. Otherwise, we would have far fewer ambitions and goals. We should and must compare ourselves to others because standards are necessary. Without them, there is nowhere to go and nothing to do. And there are so many activities available to us, ones that match our talents, involve us productively with others, and ones that even sustain and improve themselves over time. The world allows for limitless ways of being. If you don't succeed at one, you can always try another. You can even invent your own. Although it's inevitable that we compare ourselves to other people, how we do so is very important as well. More often than not, we do it with a negative or arrogant perspective, resulting in us feeling either better or worse off than another person. These ways of comparing ultimately trap us in a cycle of insecurities or arrogance. What's crucial then is leveraging the internal critic inside of us in a way that avoids resentment, bitterness, and envy, but rather in a way that voluntarily promotes inspiration, motivation, and pleasure. Humility is essential for allowing all of that. Humility allows us to compare ourselves to other people, not for feelings of superiority or inferiority, but rather feelings of inspiration and motivation. Comparing ourselves to others for inspiration and motivation is great and will help us avoid falling into that pattern cycle of thinking I'm better or worse off than another person. Now, we also have to be careful about who we compare ourselves to. Is it rational to compare ourselves to LeBron James when evaluating and judging our basketball skills? The answer is probably no. Sure, we should have some sort of ideal to strive towards, and ideals act as judges themselves because we are never as good as our ideal. So how can we have the benefit of having an ideal to strive towards without the crushing blow that goes along with the judge that regards ourselves as insufficient? We need a goal, but we also don't want that distance between our current state and that goal to crush us. So it's important to set a high yet realistic goal for ourselves, and ultimately differentiate it and break it down into smaller linked objectives so that it doesn't overwhelm us and we know exactly where and what the next step is. And each step should be difficult enough that it pushes us, but also provide us with a reasonable probability of achieving it. And that will be different from one individual to another. Another way to look at comparisons, and I like this approach the best, is to ask ourselves, why would we even want to compare ourselves to another person when no two people on this planet share identical lives? Sure, we might want certain aspects or advantages that another person possesses, but there are probably some things about that person that we absolutely detest and would not want for ourselves as well. So how do we make sense of that? Is that person really then someone we should judge ourselves harshly against? The answer is we don't know, because there's a high probability that we don't know every single aspect and detail of their life. So that brings me to my next question. Who is someone that we can truly compare ourselves to? Well, that's easy. Ourselves. More specifically, yesterday's version of ourselves. There's no one who knows us better than ourselves. And if we are to compare ourselves with someone else, it should be our former self. We should aim high towards our goals and make today any increment of betterment than yesterday. And we define better in our own ways. Only we know the areas in our lives that have room for improvement. Once again, comparing ourselves to others for inspiration and motivation is great, but only we as individuals are the ones that we can truly compare ourselves to, because we know ourselves the best. And once we give ourselves permission to get that ball rolling, well, let me tell you, continuous incremental improvement is quite powerful and compounding. If you enjoyed today's video, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe if you want to see future related content. I put out videos weekly. If you have any questions, comments, and concerns, please leave it in the comment section below or inbox me personally. You can also find links to my Facebook, Instagram, and email in the About section of this channel. And as always, thanks for watching, Newmans. I'll see you in the next one.